Hi, I'm Josh. I'm a design engineer at Ampco, and this is the seal change video for the double seal of the H Series. So the first thing you have to do is unscrew the casing clamp. Set that aside. And then grab the discharge of the casing and the suction and pull with a little bit of a wobble and it'll come right off. And then set that aside. And to get the impeller nut off, you'll need either a 3/4 inch, or if you have a smaller bore pump, you'll need a 1/2 inch wrench. You can use a cloth to protect your hands from the impeller. Off. Use an O-ring pick to help take the O-ring off and discard that since we'll be replacing it with a new one. Set this aside. Then the whole impeller and backplate assembly should slide right off the motor shaft. Take that, set it face down on a clean surface. And then next you'll need a 7/16 wrench to get these 1/4 inch bolts off. You may need to push against the gland a little bit to get the screws to come out all the way. And then once they're clear, they should pull right out. Then the gland with one of the stationary seals will come off. And you'll need to push out the stationary seal. You will need something to push against so that the seal has some place to go. So we use 2 wooden blocks and put a rag underneath them to catch the seal so it doesn't shatter. And then I take another rag and put it over the backside so that when I use this 36mm tool to push out, it doesn't crack the seal. Not that we're going to reuse it anyway. So we'll do that. Push it on the silicon carbide part of the seal and then push. And now we have the seal separated from the gland. We'll set this aside to reuse. The seal will be discarded. And then next, we can pull the flush housing off of the back plate. That'll come right off. And then you'll want to remove this drain plug for the reassembly step with a 1/4 inch Allen wrench. Remove that, set aside. You can use an O-ring pick or a toothpick or something to remove the O-rings from the groove. And we'll be discarding these. And if you used any grease to assemble this like I did, you might want to use some kind of food safe cleaner like alcohol to get all the oil off. Alright, and we'll set that aside. Now we can remove the rotating seals by pulling up and pushing against the back of the impeller, and that will slide right off. with the tabbed washer. Set that aside. We'll remove the O-ring, set these two aside. And then for the seal driver, we need an 1/8 inch Allen wrench to remove these set screws. There's 1 and 2. Careful not to lose your springs. So we'll need those for reassembly. And there's 3 more springs underneath this tabbed washer. So when you lift up, be sure to capture them so they don't fall out. Flip that over, collect the springs. Set these parts aside. And then you can remove the last rotating seal by pushing down on the impeller and pulling up on the back plate at the same time. Everything will slide up the shaft and you can pull the whole thing off. Discard our seal. And then we'll be doing the same thing with the back plate as we did with the gland ring. Set something down to catch the seal. You don't need to prop this up this time because it's tall enough for the seal to fall out. And then protect the seal so it doesn't shatter. Use a cylindrical tool, anything that'll fit, to push the stationary seal out. And we'll remove our casing O-ring and discard since we'll be using a new one. And discard our last seal. And now the pump is fully disassembled. Alright, so for reassembly, we're going to start with the impeller on a clean surface again, and the back cover. So with a fresh stationary seal, notice how there's a shiny side and a dull side. We're going to put the shiny side up in the gasket so that part of the dull face is covered by the back side of the gasket. And then apply some food safe lubricant. Spread it around. And then line it up with this groove. And then once it's in, you can push it all the way to the bottom. Flip it over to make sure that there's no space in between the bottom of the back plate and the seal gasket. Looks good. And then once again with some alcohol, we're just going to clean the seal face. Then we will set cover over top of the impeller. And our first rotating seal will go on. Install the O-ring in the back of the seal. Use some assembly lubricant. Use the seal driver as a tool to hold the O-ring in place while you install the seal onto the shaft. So with the sealing face facing down towards the stationary seal, push it onto the impeller shaft. Use the seal driver to hold the O-ring so it's all the way down. Pull the driver back off. Install 3 of the springs in the larger holes. And then use one of your tab washers to hold the spring in place and line up the grooves with the tabs. Flip that over and line up the grooves in the seal with the grooves in the tab. And then we'll install the second seal. Put the O-ring in the seal. Use lubricant again. Seated all the way down in the groove. Install 3 more springs into the larger holes. And then install the tap washer over top of the springs, the tab in the groove. Seal, which has assembly lubricant, and push it over the shaft, lining the grooves up with the tabs. Everything should be locked in place. And then you will take your flush housing and install the first O-ring on the side that is opposite to the flush holes. Need some assembly grease to hold the O-ring in place so it doesn't fall out when you flip it over. Just add a little bit of grease. And then sometimes these O-rings need a little bit of stretching so that they fit in the groove. So I'll just stretch nice and evenly, but not too far. You don't want to break the O-ring. Set it in the groove. Make sure it's all the way seated. And then flip it over and then set it over top of the whole seal assembly. And then line these holes up with the holes in the back plate. Your second O-ring that's installed, same as the first. Add a little bit of grease. Set the O-ring in. Make sure it's seated all the way. Take our second gland. Install the other stationary seal with the shiny side once again facing up from the gasket. Use a little lubricant. Line that up and push it all the way down. Check it's all the way seated. Then we will remove a little bit of the excess oil with some more alcohol. Then this piece will go over top of the seal assembly. Those holes will line up, and then you install your 1/4-inch bolts. Threads to start, you'll need to compress the gland down on to the rest of the seal. And then start the threads. Use a 7/16 wrench to tighten the bolts. Use an X pattern to make sure everything goes in straight. Seal assembly. Get your impeller O-ring or impeller nut and install the impeller O-ring in it. rubber O-ring. You'll need a few shims. I measured, when I took it apart, the clearance between the impeller and the back cover, and I've grabbed shims to match that clearance. So before installing those, you have to look through this hole, the rotating carrier, the seal driver, with that hole, and then use an 1/8 inch Allen wrench to tighten that. Before you do that, lift it up. The shims that match your original clearance. Tighten the first one down. After that, you can remove the shims. Now the seal is locked in place and won't slide down the shaft anymore. And then rotate so that you can line up the other set screw. Tighten that one. All right. And now make sure you still have your original shims set on the motor shaft, and your key is still there. Install the drain plug. You may need to use pipe sealant or Teflon tape to keep it from leaking. With a 1/4 inch Allen wrench. Now install the whole assembly with the seal flush taps lining up with the large holes on your adapter. For a seal flush, you want the large holes to be up and down so that you supply through the bottom and discharge out the top. So with the key lining up on the motor shaft, slide that on, get those holes lined up. And you should be able to see the flush holes through that hole in the adapter. Nut. And I use a rag to protect my hands from the sharp edges on the impeller. And tighten until you feel the nut bottom out. Grab your clamp. The orientation doesn't really matter. And then you can use your chest to hold the casing in place. And then close the clamp. And tighten the wing nut until it's hand tight.